Hello, everyone, and welcome to the VO Dojo's Ask the Sensei. Uh, this is our monthly Q&A meeting that we do once a month. I'm Tish Hicks. I'm the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo here in Burbank, California. Each month, we are joined by Dan Lenard, our Techno Sensei, and one of our esteemed colleagues from various genres and walks of voiceover. And we are absolutely thrilled to have Simon Vance with us today as a guest sensei. Simon is one of, if not the, we could arm wrestle about it, premier audiobook narrators working today. So supremely excited to have you. Um, so great to see everyone and from all the places. If you want to write in the chat where you're from, we'd love to hear that. And I'm going to start a poll. I'm going to launch a poll here that if you have a second to fill that out, this allows us to get a sense of where everyone's at, so we can answer the question at the level that most people are working here. And I also wanted to introduce our dojo team who's on the call here. Joshua Edwards is as our moderator today, and Jeffrey Gilbank is with us from the dojo headquarters in New York. So excellent. Um, so Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to, and then we'll introduce Simon. Oh, one more thing in terms of how this is going to work. So you'll be being prepared. We'll be taking your questions, type them in the chat, and then we'll call on you to speak them into the room, and Simon and Dan and I we'll answer as many as we can in the time that we have. So, Dan, how's it going? You just come back from an awesome trip.
Yeah, no, we were in Iceland. You ever get the chance, go to Iceland. It's another planet, just totally magnificent. And in the middle of summer, much better than the 110 that we're experiencing here in the valley. So yeah, that was great. But I'm Dan Lenard, the home studio master. My job is to make sure you are recording properly and not too much. So I'm here to answer your questions. Anything about home voiceover studios, I will be happy to address.
Excellent. And in the most simple and direct way. That's what we love about you. Yeah. Well, Simon, hello, and thank you so much for being here. So tell us a little bit about your journey to here and
how it all began.
Yeah.
There's the short version and the long version. My father gave me a tape recorder when I was 11, and in a sense that was the very beginning, 1966 or the end of 66. There was a budget going on. I don't know, they were going to put the prices up, so he thought it's a good idea. So I started recording into a microphone, and I never stopped. I actually to jump over many decades, I was at the BBC in London. I was a newsreader for Radio 4. I arrived in the city with plenty of time on my hands and odd shift patterns with days off in the week, and I didn't know anybody, but I did know somebody who'd done recording books for the blind through the RNIB, Royal National Institute for the Blind, and I applied there, and I volunteered my time for about 8 years, once a week, 2 or 3 hours, sitting in there was an engineer and 2 studios, and they had reel-to-reel tapes, and basically she or he were monitoring both of us and trusting us, and that was my apprenticeship, if you like. And I moved, that was in the 80s, and I moved to the US, to California in 1992, almost exactly 30 years ago now, planning to be an actor. There's a whole other story going on there, and I succeeded somewhat, and audiobook narration is acting, of course, but it was a way to earn money. Theater work didn't bring in a lot, and there wasn't a lot of TV work going on in San Francisco. So I got an introduction to Blackstone Audiobooks in '93, I think it was, and I found I could do it. And it was a very slow process. Now we can talk about it, but these days people need to get in and get on really quickly. They want to be earning money, but I was using it as a background job for a long time, and that's how it went. I joined, I think, Books on Tape, which became Penguin Random House eventually, about 6 years later, and then in 2003 I started with Tantor Audio. As you see, just very slow, gradual. But of course, around that time, the early aughts was when the MP3 became hot, and the iPods and iPhones and all that sort of business. And suddenly the business took off, and I was riding the wave. And that's why I'm here now, I think.
So I think there's so much about audiobooks that is about the long haul, that it's very reassuring to, well, actually, I think everybody needs to interpret what it means to their soul, because it might be very reassuring that, oh, that you built your 10,000 hours, doing the work. And that's, how do you get to being great in the top of the game? It's building the skills. And just as you don't do a book overnight, the process is not overnight. And it's interesting building a career.
It's really hard. I think these days the pressure on people to get in and get on quickly, the need, and or people even put that on themselves. They look at the business and say, oh, I could do that, and expect to be earning money or good money within a year or something. And it's a lot harder than that, because it's not as spread as general voiceover. I mean, it's a very specialized, as you say, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And there's a lot involved. And I think people, for me, it was do what you love. And fortunately, what I loved turned out to be very successful for me, because I love reading. And the reason I did it, because it's, who wants to sit in a box? This is my studio here, by the way. Who wants to sit in a little black box for hours and then talking to themselves? Well, some people do. I like it, because I really hate people. So I enjoy shutting myself away. Self-isolation is my thing. So, it worked. It worked for me, and I found it, but it doesn't work for a lot of people. And also, it's in terms of money per minute, is one of the worst paid jobs in voiceover. So it is that long stretch. You got to have the stamina for it.
You seem so nice for a people hater.
I can keep you at a distance.
For a misanthrope.
I could turn you off with one press of my button. But I won't, don't worry.
Excellent. Well, shall we answer some questions? I'm excited to hear what is on people's minds. Let's see. We've got a great combination of everybody from all over. Let's start with Bill. I'm not sure which Bill it is, but who typed in.
Morning.
Yeah, it's Bill Coronado. Hello.
Hey,
Bill
good morning. Simon, I was wondering, how do you match your tone if you're doing a narration? Do you keep track of time of day, conditions, etc.? So maybe when you come back to it, you remember where you were in case your voice isn't quite in the same place?
Well, I guess there's a couple of things to this. One is I generally record at the same time every day, but it does stretch over a few hours. I've reduced my hours because I've got older now, and I don't feel the need. But I mean, there was a time I do 3 or 4 complete hours a day. 3 was what I'd schedule. At the moment, I scheduled about 2 hours finished, and I usually start in the morning like 9 o'clock and run through till noon or something like that. So I've got the rest of the day to work on other aspects of the business. So there's that you constantly do that, and you don't go out. If you're doing a book over a few days, you don't go out in the evening and go to a baseball game and shout and scream, or a rock concert and shout and scream, or smoke cigars or party hearty. You've got to protect the instrument. So I think I don't worry too much about it myself, because I trust that I'm looking after myself. When it comes to starting off in the morning, I will often listen to the end of what I did the day before. And sometimes I will sit and read, and that's as much for pacing as anything else. but I'll also listen. And there are occasions, you know, when the voice doesn't quite match. It's almost impossible to be always consistent because different things happen. You're emotionally different, which is why I will only ever stop at the end of a chapter or a very prominent break in the story. So that when you pick it up, you're not picking it up mid chapter, mid sentence, whatever. You wouldn't pick up mid sentence, but you're not picking it up in the middle of something where people, you know, and then she walked into the house and it was amazing. You know, suddenly you're like somewhere else entirely, or your voice has suddenly dropped. But people can be somewhat tolerant. I hope they have been so far. If you go to the end of a chapter and there's a 3 or 4 second break, and then you come in with, you know, chapter 4. And it's a little bit different, but you really want to try and watch that. And there are times when I've gone back and re-recorded stuff at the beginning of a day, just because I felt my voice slotted in better later. Not a lot, but it's something. It's self-care is premium for this. And interestingly, you know, I do shorter pieces for news organizations sometimes, and I'm not so worried about my voice then because it's 45 minutes, and it doesn't matter what time of day it is. I can do it late in the evening, early in the morning, because you're just doing that one voice, that one piece. But yes, when you're doing the marathon, you've got to try and keep some consistency.
Love that point of view. There's people who are probably like 45 minutes, and you're like, oh, whatever.
The ocean.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. This next question is great because it kind of can go to Dan and Simon in terms of matching, seconding Bill's question. But Pamela, let's hear your question and introduce yourself.
Don't be shy.
Hi there. It was giving me all kinds of pop-ups before. Let me turn my mic on.
Or did you just turn it off?
We heard you.
Pittsburgh, you're on the air.
You're muted. Yeah. Can you unmute yourself, Pamela?
It says the host is not allowing me to
There you
unmute.
go. No, we can hear you. You are out
Okay.
of the entire mode.
Sure why it suddenly turned off, but okay. So my question here is when if you have to say dismantle your studio or some of your sound treatments around your space in order for functionality in between your submissions, how do you go about best re-ascertaining that same room sound and like the vocal recording quality sound? Because I've noticed in between it seems to change every time, and no matter what I do, even if I've got the same placement, it still sounds slightly different.
Yeah, well, every room is different. Every voice is different. So to determine that is very hard. You got to have a really good ear and have the ability to recreate the acoustical nature of the room you record in. To me, everything is physical. Everything is acoustics, and how you use your microphone and how you set your levels and things along those lines. So it's really, really important that if you're moving around a lot, you have to realize doing audiobooks is going to be incredibly difficult.
You can't.
I should clarify. It's the same corner that it's being put in.
Oh, okay.
It's just that for whatever reason, when he set it back up, it's like, wait, why does it sound different now? It's the exact same corner. It's the exact same material being used.
Yeah, no, are you like in a closet or is there?
It's in a corner of a bedroom.
Okay, corner of a bedroom. Okay. A lot has to do with microphone placement and your level setting and things along those lines. I've known people who, record in their closet and they'll call and say, why is it chained? I'm like, did you send something to the cleaners?
Yeah.
That's something that will radically change the acoustics. A lot can depend on how loud you're talking, how much you're projecting your voice, because the louder you talk, the more the acoustics of the room come into play. So how do you reproduce it? It's not a matter of, well, what filters can I use and stuff like that to make it sound the same? You can't.
Yeah. No, it was more just if you're using the exact same material, I just wasn't sure if there was something that could be done, or if you're really just hooping, you kind of just have to not touch anything in between.
I was going to say, if you keep taking it down and putting it back up, that's the thing. If you're going to create a recording space where you're going to be using consistently, use it consistently and don't unplug everything and try and reset it up, because you'll never be able to recreate, that exact setup again. Especially if there's different things in your bedroom, if dog on the bed, that sort of thing. It's going to affect all the acoustics.
Valid.
So my suggestion would be, either have a consistent place to record in, like a booth like Simon has or I have, or, don't take things down and maintain a consistent sound.
For that project, right? For the duration of that project.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was going to say, it's essential. I think for an audiobook narrator, you can't even think about moving your stuff, in your career, because every time you move, the publisher is probably going to, if you're working for a publisher, is probably going to want to hear it again to make sure it's okay. I mean, even me with, I moved in here about 3 years ago with this, and a couple of the publishers said, "Can we hear your new setup?" It was exactly the same. It's a 6x4 pre-built, with U87 microphones, exactly the same, but they wanted to check it just to make sure that it was up to snuff. I was thoroughly offended, of course, that they want to check me, but you have to put up with these things sometimes.
And so, Simon, you when you are working, you don't do pickups or anything else. Like if you go to New York or if you go somewhere else, you don't.
No. The nearest I've come to some situation like that was when 6 years ago, when we were based near San Francisco. We had a house up there, and then we started renting down here. And what I did was this is the one I had up north, and I bought this exact same size pre-built booth down here, so it was the same size with the same shape of stuff in it. I had all the same equipment, which I made mobile, which I was able to move out. But I'm very aware of mic placement and where I have everything. But I never did a whole book and split it between north and south. But occasionally, very occasionally, I tried to define it. So I'd be up north for a week, and then I'd be down here for a few weeks and stuff. I tried to make sure I did one book one place, but I could do pickups because they were close enough. And it was just the odd, maybe even a syllable that they needed to correct or something like that they could. So it was close enough. But I wouldn't have recorded in half a book in one studio and half a book in another, because it's just it just wouldn't be right. The acoustics would be all wrong.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges that I think people now in audiobooks are faced with is that the industry has asked narrators to do everything, but that's not part of your workflow, right?
No. I mean, we have to be careful. The union's been very good in this respect with the contracts and so on and so forth, that there isn't sort of mission creep. There was a point a year ago where one of the publishers wanted us to note typos in the text and list them out and send them on, and that's not our job. We are supposed to get a finished script to record, and if we make mistakes, then we do the corrections. If they've made mistakes, if they rewrite something or something comes back differently, then they need to pay extra money for that. That's more work. That's not included in the pot, as it were. So no, but it's natural, I think, in a business like this, and especially, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but newbies, will often want to do more to impress, and that undermines it for everybody. If they're asked, "Oh, well, could you do this? I just had a request. Would you be around if we've got a client who wants to listen to it? Will you be around after that for any extra notes?" And I said, "Yes, I'll be around, but if it's not a mistake I made, it's going to cost you another session fee." You don't, because as I say, the industry, the audiobook industry is not, not high rate of pay for the amount of work you put in. Doing commercials and stuff like that, you can get an awful lot of money for a couple of minutes. But here it's a standard rate. So you want to sort of hold on to what you've got. So it's very difficult. I mean, it's very difficult. I understand the pressure that new people in the industry will feel to please, but that's why we have Facebook groups. People can ask advice and so on and so forth, and get advice from people who've been around a bit longer, like me.
Yeah. Great. Excellent. Let's see. Mark Chernoi from Portland, Oregon has a question. You with us, Mark? Oh, there you are. Hello, Mark.
Yes. Yeah, hi. Yeah, thanks for calling on me. Simon, and thank you for this session. Yeah, I'm really grateful for this session. Yeah. Simon, I missed part of your intro about your earlier part of your career. I was having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, so I put my headset on and I missed a little. I'm just curious, did you explore around in different aspects of voice work before you settled on audiobooks? Just curious to hear about that.
No, not I think, not in the sense you mean. I fell into audiobooks. It was an accident. I never woke up one day and said, oh gosh, I didn't wake up one day and say I want to be in voiceover. In fact, my earliest dreams were to be, well, my earliest dreams to be an RAF pilot. That didn't work out. But I was keen on acting, but I came from a professional family, stage acting. A professional family, doctors, nurses, and so on. And my brother's a dentist, and I felt that responsibility. I actually did engineering at university first before I ended up getting a degree in economics. But in the meantime, in vacation time, I was playing with my friends in radio, local radio in Brighton, and then eventually I joined the BBC. So I'm using my voice a lot. And then I ended up doing books for the blind because it was fun to do in London. That was voluntary, didn't get paid for that. And if you missed that, that's when I say I got my apprenticeship. So it was never a thought, even then when I was doing that for charity, to go, I want to be a voiceover artist. It was never a thought in my mind to be a voiceover artist. And to be honest, so the rest of it happened. I ended up doing audiobooks over here, and it grew and grew and grew, like Topsy. I have tried on occasions to do more general voiceover. But you know what? I'm sorry to say, I don't really enjoy it. I like long form narration. I love it. I don't like, it's paid me very well when I think there are maybe 3 or 4 things in my life that I've succeeded at getting a job in voiceover accidentally, a commercial thing. And it pays very well, but that never quite seduced me because I don't have the passion for that, which I think you need. This employs all my time. My guitars employ the rest of it, and I'm still training as an actor. I'm still looking at the possibility of working, and have done a lot of stuff. But those things. So that side of it, no, I haven't looked up beyond audiobooks specifically. No.
Right. At the dojo, we always talk about that voiceover is an art form that serves commerce, and then that commerce serves your art form. So yeah. Cool. Excellent. Well, thanks, Mark. Here's a question for Dan from Catherine List. Another New York Dojo member. Are you here, Catherine?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hello. First of all, thank you for doing this. And Simon, it's very exciting to meet you virtually. I'm a huge fan of your Hilary Mantel books, and I just devour them. Absolutely love them. I too am from a stage background and dived into audiobooks a few years ago, and now I'm back to focusing on it. And I think this is probably a question for Dan, because I don't think you have to do this considering the level at which you've done audiobooks for so long. I'm building my portfolio out. I've done several books already. I've had other people master them, but I'm trying to add to some other things in my portfolio so that I can approach more publishers to have them listen to more of my work aside from my audiobook demo samples. And Dan, you helped me a few weeks ago when I was moving some stuff around and having some equipment issues about what the right sound was for audiobooks. And I'd also be interested to know if Simon has a comment on that, because of the certain sound engineers preferring a certain sound. But do you think that it is relatively easy for someone like me, who I know enough to edit my stuff with the sound levels, but to learn to master a whole audiobook? Do you think that's a skill worth developing for a narrator who wants to build out more of their representative portfolio?
Yeah, that's a great question. And then the actual title of the question, mastering, is really part of what we're talking about. It takes a long time to learn what all those things do and how it affects your audio. And if you don't know what something does, don't use it. I'm sure Simon will probably back me up on this. Most of the time, if the publisher wants you to master it, they're going to give you very, very specific parameters of what to use to process your audio. They're going to tell you how to compress it and things like that. I mean, I have a preset that I would use for audiobooks. It was like compress, expand, compress, expand, compress, expand, until, it was crushed beyond belief. And, it was like, well, I don't particularly like this sound, which is one of the reasons I stopped doing audiobooks. But creating a master preset, a stack of things, yeah, you can do that. I would have somebody who knows exactly what they're doing do it. I mean, what I would suggest is play with it. But if you don't really understand what the parameters are asking for, you're not going to really understand or learn all that stuff. It really takes a good understanding of audio and what compression is and what some of these other things that they want. So they're essentially taking your voice and they want it at full modulation so that people, deaf people can hear it on their earbuds. But, generally, unless they ask you or unless they give you specific parameters, give them the nice, clean, dry audio that they want. Now, I'm not sure exactly how, what Simon does with his publishers, but I'm sure it might be a little bit different. But I think for most people who are just getting into audiobooks or have done a few, I don't think they really want you messing with it unless they really tell you specifically what they want. Simon?
Yeah. The short answer is no post-processing or any kind of processing at all, none whatsoever. Maybe a little compression, but that's again, but get guidance on that. My story is that years ago, probably 20 years ago, Dan Wasselman at Random House said, the book's on tape now, I can't remember, a little downward expander. So I got a downward expander, which is the thing that sort of silences in the gaps, reduces any background noise and stuff. If it's badly used, and it has been and can be, you'll notice the sort of the little hiss behind people talking, and then it suddenly disappears when they're quiet and then comes back up. That's downward expansion. But I had one and I was very delicate with it and used it very gently. And I used it until quite recently because of the way I work, and I don't want to get into that, but I don't do punch and roll. I do straight record and I edit all my own stuff up to a point. I mean, it gets proofed elsewhere and QC'd and elsewhere, so I'm not the last guy doing it. But so I had downward expansion, and then and I always check with the engineer. Do you mind? I got a little downward expansion. Is that okay in here? And they're fine with that. And then I did an audition and started working with Apple News, doing some of these 45-minute news pieces. And I did an audition for them, and they went, "You got a downward expander in there." Everybody's ears are like getting bigger. I don't know, engineers' ears are bigger than they were 20 years ago. But I thought, oh, now the other thing that had changed in the last couple of years is I moved into this new space. I had a studio built, actually this last year. It was finished in February last year, just in time for me to move out of the house. So my wife could do remote teaching up there and make noise while I was making noise down here. But I moved down here and it's so quiet. I thought, you know what? I don't think I need the downward expansion anymore. And so I cut it out. So they only have a touch of compression, nothing else. And I always hear, every engineer, if you go to doing a job, they'll say, please, no processing. We want the raw audio, just the raw audio. So that's my message. Whether it's a good talent to have to understand these things, I think is a great talent to have. I think, I wish I knew more about, I've got some, I have what is it, gear acquisition syndrome. So I've got things that I do suffer. I have things here that God knows I could do wonderful things with my voice, and I don't, because I don't dare touch it. So it's
to play with, but
Yeah, I had a question for Catherine. Now, when you're talking about this, are you talking about being able to master an audiobook as something that you could offer to someone else, or being able to offer it as something that is part of what you can deliver?
I think for me, realistically, it would be to me to offer something part of something I can deliver, because there's a couple of genres of books where I'd love to have a representative book. But if somebody's asking me to do it, they're not paying me a lot. And usually I've done a number of books where I get paid a nice union wage, but a couple I'm doing it literally to expand my portfolio, in
Okay,
which
I see.
case, if I go and pay my sound engineer, I'm making $400 on the job. you
Right,
know?
right. Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're talking about your audiobook
Yeah.
samples and
I just wanted to say, years ago, back mid to late 90s, Blackstone, the whole industry is going through a bad phase. I was going through a bad phase, divorce, bankruptcy, depression, everything else. And it was just, and Blackstone sent me a letter. Well, they reduced their output, and I offered to proof my own stuff. That was a huge mistake. I mean, I did it, earned me more money. It was because of what you say. I wanted to earn more money because it was non-union back then, and there wasn't a lot of cash around, and I just wanted more. And I proved it. And oh God, I'm sure I doubt that I did a good job. Mastering as in terms of the sound of it, that's a different thing, I guess. You could do that. And if you're doing independent projects through ACX or something else that you don't want to employ an engineer, then yes, you would need to do it to get up to the specs that ACX require of you. Otherwise, they'll reject the book.
Right. No, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, from that point of view, knowing enough to do that to save you the money on a short one, it's probably not impossible. I mean, but I'd be very careful. I certainly don't do it on anything bigger, but I don't think you're asking that. I think you're just asking for the small ones. I think it's a good knowledge for a narrator to have, but a dangerous knowledge for a narrator to have. So handle with care.
And also, I think there's just sheer number of hours in the day. Obviously,
Right.
if it's for a sample, that makes sense.
And the aim is to get so busy with the narration
Yes.
that you can pay for. I mean, that's the aim. So if you keep filling your time with learning about things that aren't going to earn you as much as the narration is, it's not necessarily a positive thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The margin is so tight, even when you're just doing narration. So yeah. Something you said, Simon, that really intrigued me, because I feel like when I started in audiobooks, there was such care with the sound. And this one's going to be heard on a CD in a car, and this one, there was a lot of, so it's good to hear you say that people are tuned in like, because it also seems like, yeah, get a mic, do whatever, who cares? Is a little bit what it feels like, but it's good to hear that your experience is not that.
Yeah, there's something else I meant to throw into that last one, which has to do with the need to do more as a narrator. It mixes up a couple of the questions and answers and stuff, but this need to do more. And there's a big thing coming up, there's around now, and it's a thing called positron. And some of you may have heard of it, but you feed the audio through a computer with artificial intelligence and the text, and it kicks back all the errors, which sounds magnificent. It's a whole long story. I won't go into it, but it's a thing that needs to be handled with care. But what I'm hearing more and more is of new narrators coming to the business thinking, would it be good if I do my narration and I have a subscription to Positron or something, and I throw it through Positron and then submit it to the publishers? But no, you're doing their job for them, and Positron is not perfect by any stretch. So I just wanted to get that in there, that the need to do more in that respect. Again, it's not a good thing. You may think you're doing a good thing and pleasing people, but actually it's going to just, it means you're doing a lot of the work that's probably going to be redone later on anyway by the publisher in QCing and stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's Pamela, if it's okay to just, since we've heard your voice in the room, I'll just ask Pamela's question really quick, because it has a little bit to do with that production and what the expectations are now, because it's pretty intense what is expected now in terms of what a human can do. But Pamela just asked about turnaround time, and then I'm excited to move on to questions about character building and how we approach that. And I think we can do that from both technical and technique. But yeah, what's your experience about expected turnaround time and how we can protect ourselves in that as well?
Yeah, you're talking about deadlines and stuff.
Yeah,
it's a difficult one, because even I get, people come to me with a book and they need it done in about 3 weeks or something, and I work a few weeks ahead. Hopefully there was a time back when there were fewer narrators, I was booked 3 months ahead, and that was wonderful. Now it's sort of a month and maybe a few odd series that stretch on. What I like to do is keep some space available. So if I do get demands for something like that, you obviously can't respond to unreasonable demands. And if got a good relationship with a publisher, they will listen to you. And I think it's probably more likely with new people in the industry that they'll be dealing directly with the author. And basically, you're in the position of power. You are the one who knows, even if you're unsure about it, act as if you know how long it's going to take you. Well, you can work that out, but just preach patience for an author. If they go, I must have it. Look, I can only do so much. My turnaround, if you like, I like to have the text in hand a week before I go in the studio, at least a week. Sometimes I don't, sometimes it's less, but mostly it's a week or even longer. Sometimes I'll have them a month ahead if they're a series and they know that they've got them coming, or it's a book that's already been written a long time ago. So I will schedule, as I said, 2 hours a day finished. So I'll on my calendar, I will say it's a 10-hour book. I'll do 2 hours a day. It'll be Monday to Friday. That's it. And obviously if it's longer or less. And I used to do 3 hours a day finished, and I still could if I'm pressed. And that's the other thing. If I schedule that, and then if I'm required to do more, because I do want to please the narrator, the publisher, then I will. I do the recording and I do my cleanup edit through straight record, usually the same day, sometimes on the last day, and I'll ship it out. So that's, in terms of how long it takes for me. For them to turn it around, I have no idea. Sometimes corrections will come within a week, sometimes they'll come a month later. Generally, publishers like to have turnaround on corrections in 2 or 3 days. So but they're not usually a lot, fingers crossed. Am I answering the question? I'm not sure. I'm sort of rambling.
I think so. So what I hear is know how much time is comfortable for you to prepare a book, and then know what your work day is like. Now, what is your ratio to get to finished hours?
It's interesting. I don't know. I think probably, to get to finished hours. Well, I take about an hour and 5 or hour and 10 to record an hour. And then I have to edit the corrections out, which takes me a couple of minutes, 5-10 minutes, because I'm actually very fast. So, I was certainly less than an hour and a half to an hour. But you're not including prep for reading and stuff, before.
Right.
And that's when you, again, I've been in the business a long time. I know how to do shortcuts, and I don't want to educate people badly. You should always read ahead, obviously. But there's a lot of stuff that I sight read because I know the author, I know the style of the story. I've cheated and looked at the back page. Or there's no complicated narrative going on here. It's a non-fiction story or something like that.
Yeah.
And
you also had that 8 years of 10,000-hour building that
at that point, I was just doing 2 hours a day, 2 hours an afternoon, 2 hours a week. It was one afternoon, we get 2 hours done. That was all I did. I did all 5-6 Dune books, and it took me a year. They're somewhere in the files of the RNIB in London. I've done it since, and I've done it, for Macmillan. But it's something you will learn over time. Don't take on projects you don't think you'll be able to fit into the space. It's hard. You want to please, always. We want to please because we want to get on, but it's hard. You got to maintain power over your process, and people will listen. The good people will listen. The other ones you don't want to be working with, because they're just going to be trouble for you all the way down the line. Because if you bend over backwards for someone that you don't, you do bend over backwards sometimes for people because you want to please people. But if you do that for somebody you're not sure about, you never know, they might come back and keep wanting you to be under the whip and stuff, and that it all stops being a pleasure then.
That's really helpful, because I think power over process, because so much of audiobook is about the process. That is good. Well, let's switch gears to, there's a couple questions, and I think what I'd like to do is have David, if you could ask your question, and Rich, if you could ask your question, because they're both kind of in the realm of character. So we'll hear both of your voices asking your questions, and then we can explore the answers together. So David Galassi.
Hey there.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Awesome. Good to see you, Tish. Good to see you, Dan. Simon, become a recent big fan. I've been listening to Bring Up the Bodies, and that brings me to my question for you, because there's just a truckload of male voices, particularly in that, and each one has its little regionalism and little stuff. And I'm like, how do you differentiate with that? Especially, it sounds like you say you like to read it long form and not punch and roll so much. Do you go through and make little like sound bites of the different characters, or what do you do so that you don't like get lost in the middle of this group conversation?
Is there another question you're going to have and added on to this, or you've muted? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, sorry. It was me. It kind of builds off that same idea, the idea of audiobook narration as an extension of acting is particularly interesting to me, because my background is in theater acting. And that's partly why I've really drawn towards audiobooks. So I was curious about, your process for building characters within a novel, the prep work that goes into that. Specifically, I'm a huge fan of Alan Moore's work, and I know that, you recorded a very, very long book of his. And part of that I read, you spent time with him, kind of getting to know the work. And that is something that I feel like you hear more often with actors, who'll go and spend time with the subject to, get more into the character. And so that really interested me as part of that process. So I was curious to hear more on that.
Yeah, it's I'm very sloppy. I'm not a good example as an audiobook narrator, although I seem to have made a living at it. I know what some people do. I know there are people who will go through and they will highlight dialogue of different colors with different people, so on the text that they are reading. I don't mark my text ever, and that's a throwback to a guy I had as a boss at Radio 4 as a newsreader. He said, don't mark your text. Don't pauses and up at this sentence and down. I know it's a different thing with commercials and stuff. It can be anyway. So don't let me deny anything Tish ever says you should do. But for me, because what you end up doing is, the guy said, was read from mark to mark. So you can see the marks on your, I'm going to go up at the end here and I'm going to go down, instead of reading the story. So there's, and for me, marking the text includes marking the characters. I don't do that because, to me, again, it would distract me. It would go, oh, I've got this guy talking, instead of being in the story and knowing that. Because in my head, when I'm narrating, it's the sort of God complex. I'm everybody. I'm on stage. And it is a sort of a theater or a movie set. Movie set, probably more like something like, where I am everybody, but I jump. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. I mentioned right at the very beginning, my dad gave me a tape recorder at age 11, and one of the first things I did with a friend, we used to listen to a lot of the comedy shows in Radio 4, and there was I'm Sorry, I'll Read That Again and stuff like that, when everybody was putting on silly voices. That's what they did, and that's what I did. So I'm very, I think facile is the word, jumping from voice to voice. I can do it, I don't have to think. People ask me, do you record one character and then another character, and do all of this character and all of that character? No, you got to be in the story, in the moment. And in terms of the reaction, it is acting, because I'm saying something to you, and then as me, I'm reacting to what I just said to me. And there's a sort of a mental process that goes through your head. How emotionally do I react? If somebody says that to me, how do I react? It's instantaneous, like in improv or on stage, it is. Now, to answer the first bit more of the first question, how do I retain those characters? My answer, I think it still is. It's the sort of it became a standard answer, but I imagine the people in my head, and often will attach famous faces to them. I used to say, well, you know, Alec Guinness, this is my Alec Guinness voice. This is my John Wayne voice. Oh God, help me, don't ask me to do a John Wayne voice. But if you know, and I'm not a mimic, so it's not going to be, oh, there's Simon. Well, I hope it's not going to be Simon doing his Alec Guinness voice, but it's a hook for me. So if this particular, I don't know, statesman is in my head, he's Alec Guinness, or he's, I know, Benedict Cumberbatch or something like that. You know, you hook that in there so that whenever this person's around, you can see them and you use their voice. And who you choose and what kind of character you give them it does come out of the research you do with the reading of the book. You know, that, you know, I loved Bring Up the Bodies, the Hilary Mantel book. That was the only one I did of those, unfortunately. And I don't want to get all grouchy about it, but they gave it to Ben Miles, the third one. I was like so annoyed. He's a good actor and I'm sure he deserved it, but I really wanted that one. But he, but I love that character, Thomas Cromwell, because I was inside his head. And so the whole book, I was Thomas Cromwell, and I just loved that. But also putting nuancing the other voices, because it needs that to, you know, for the listener, I think, to understand clearly. There was an argument way back in the 80s when I was in the doing talking books for the blind. I was with a lot of other actors, West End actors and radio people. And there was one guy from the classical radio station, Radio 3, very old-fashioned guy. He said, I don't think we should put on character voices. I don't think it's right. We should just read the words. I was not in that camp, but there was a definite split. There were those people who said, just read the words. That's all you have to do. And there are other people who were like, no, we're going to entertain it. You know, if you've got he said, she said and stuff, that's one thing. But if you haven't got he said, she said, you have no idea who's speaking. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know if that fully answered both questions, but
yeah, that did. Thank you. I could tell that you really got into the Cromwell character because he was such a cool guy. And I thought, I had to go, I bet you he wasn't nearly as cool as you made him, because he would reply things like, he was so subtle and hip that I thought it was great that how you were able to establish his psychology through your voice.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the thing you mentioned, Alan Moore, purely off the cuff, I went on my own bat, flew from San Francisco to London and spent a few hours with Alan talking about the book and the place. It was set in his hometown of Northampton, and we walked around all the streets and places that are mentioned. And it didn't, I don't know what it gave me. I mean, specifically, I can't say exactly what it gave me, other than that I was there. And, you know, as an actor, that's a gift. That's a you know, worth a priceless gift. It's just wonderful. So it really helped me get through. So that was great.
Yeah, and that's the ultimate getting into the book, right?
Oh, yeah. That really helps. I mean, it
Book.
always helps with any author. It's good to talk to the author if you can. Now, when you're working with a big publisher, they don't like you to independently go and talk to the author. They like to keep everything demarcated, but they will allow you, sometimes they will. And I think because they know who I am, they allow me to. Just last week, I narrated Steve Howe's autobiography. He's the guitarist for Yes. And they gave me his email, and I contacted him, and he said, well, I could write you the pronunciations of these names, but let's do a Zoom call. So I got to chat to a hero of mine. And because it was his autobiography, I was able to absorb, you know, I watched a lot of, part of the research for that book was watching a lot of YouTube interviews with Steve Howe, and to see the person and to be able to sort of become him somewhat, you know, not mimic him, but to understand him. And I did the same thing with Rod Stewart years ago, and Rod ended up taking me out for dinner on my wife's birthday. So, you know, just drop that name in there.
Could be worse. Yeah, I know, Simon, you said, you know, what is the process at the dojo? So first of all, the dojo, we create a place so you find your own process. But in terms of marking things up, I think my take on that is for anything that's not long form, anything that you mark is you imposing your idea and setting it in stone. So even if you had like an Etch-a-Sketch and you shook it each time, it's still kind of set in your brain. And I think in all of your work, that does not serve, because it doesn't allow for those nuances to be discovered or find that thing in the moment. And then I think with long form, because it is process, And obviously, if you do anything for a long time, you don't need the guidelines, but you could almost think of it as like, what tools would allow you to simplify and streamline your process? For instance, if you're learning to write cursive, having ruled paper might allow you to keep it straight and keep it focused. But Simon's been doing calligraphy for a bunch of years. He doesn't need to have ruled paper. So continuing to develop and find your process is really the most important thing. It's not like, don't do that because Simon doesn't do it. Well, Simon's been doing for a really long time. He can drink and,
I know a lot of teachers in audiobooks, good coaches, and I don't coach because I don't exactly know what it is I do, but I really admire these people. I may disagree with them in many ways, but what I see it as is they're building the framework. And I liken it to Dumbo, the framework that you have to climb up to, that you then take the magic feather and jump off with, and eventually let go of the magic feather, you fly. But you need that framework to get to that height, and you need those building blocks. So yeah, I don't knock them. I don't say, don't ever do this. I had the boss at Radio 4 said, don't do that, so that, it got ingrained in me, but I'm not saying it's not something that some people.
Well, and that's a whole nother thing, because that's broadcast, which is a whole nother beast.
Yes.
Right. That broadcast is it's a whole nother discipline, a whole nother medium.
But as a newsreader, we were still telling a story. That was the thing, I think.
Absolutely. Well, let's finish up with Paul's tech question. That's about mics in general, but I think Dan and Simon, understanding is there a type of mic that serves audiobooks well could be part of that discussion. And then we will wrap up with how to keep in touch with everybody, and we will be breaking out into breakout rooms if you can stay a little longer. But let's finish up with this question, because we will finish up at 11 exactly. So yeah, so Paul, why don't you ask, Paul Amash, why don't you ask your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm in a dentist office right now.
That's devotion.
Be done. My question is about microphones, and is there, in finding what mic best suits your voice or a genre, do we look for specifications? Is it a trial and error thing? Do we know what frequencies our voice tone we want to accentuate, and we find a mic that does that? Or is it just trial and error without spending a bunch of money, because everybody's voice is different, everybody's tone is different, every mic reacts differently to a different voice. So how do we go about that process besides spending $1,000 on a good mic or $200 on a
and that might, $1,000 mic might not be the right one for you.
Exactly. So so what do we do?
Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, I would start off by asking Simon, what do you use? You and I have talked.
Well, there's a story here, but I'll tell you what I've gone through. I had a $50 Shure microphone for the first few years. I think I moved to a Neumann TLM 103 for many years. I enjoyed a Sennheiser 416 from the Blackstone, so I bought one of those for a year, but it was a little thin for me. I then tried I thought I'd try a few different ones. And if you find a friendly microphone shop or something, they will let you do it. And I actually then, I thought, well, they had a Neumann U87. I thought, I hope to God I don't like this. I hope it doesn't work for me, because it's the most, really expensive. And I put it up and thought, oh, damn. It worked. So I've got a Neumann U87 here, which is a sort of professional standard, but I'm fully aware that there may be a cheaper microphone that works better for me. I haven't worked, because there's 150,000 microphones out there. That's probably a minor exaggeration. Dan probably knows how many, but there's so many, and it really is. I don't know, Dan may be able to answer it better, but I think finding a friendly microphone store that might let you sit behind them and sample it. He's now going to go and count how many microphones it is. I got microphones. I tried, I bought another one, something else. Somebody was letting go an AT something, And I thought I'd try it. It was a charity contribution, and I've got that. But I got about 3 or 4 microphones I don't use that I've hanging around. Dan, what's your
Yeah,
answer?
it's one of those things. The way I like to describe it, it's like standing in the checkout line at the supermarket and looking at the gum and mints. You got a lot of stuff to choose from. And here's the thing. When people say, what's the best microphone for voiceover or for audiobooks, I usually say probably the one you got. Because there is no piece of equipment out there, no microphone, no preamp, no channel strip, no what, that is going to change the way you read copy. I mean, it's not going to change things. You want a good microphone. There is not a microphone that some engineer at the other end is going to go, oh, well, he's using this or he's using that. They don't know the difference. I mean, this is a custom built microphone from Mic Parts. And, people say, what kind of mic is that? I go, well, it's an Alfonso di Credenza. It's all in the mind. And the fact is, if you have the right acoustics, if you use your microphone right and you set your levels right, it doesn't matter. You just don't want a cheap piece of crap. You don't want a USB mic or something like that. Anything over $150 to $200 set in the right place, no one's going to notice, and no one's getting you're not going to buy a U87 and suddenly be Simon Vance. It just isn't going to happen. And he will be the first to tell you that.
Oh yeah.
But you really do not want to go headlong and thinking, I've got to have the best equipment. Our philosophy is generally, you don't get great equipment to get work, you work to get great equipment.
And you said it, the crucial part is in the right place. You can get a microphone that sounds crap here or something, and it sounds wonderful here or a little bit further away. You got to find your sweet spot, and that's experimentation with a single microphone.
And you're not going to find that at Banjo Emporium.
No.
Do not go into a store and say, I want to try microphones and put on headphones. It's like, well, I like the way this sounds.
You're
the
right.
problem is that you don't hire you. And if you're trying to please your own ears, you're making a big mistake. That's why, people like me and George Whittam and a few others can really determine what is the sound of your studio and what you should not be doing, which is probably a lot more what we talk about instead of what you are doing.
And it's actually bringing the puppy home. All the puppies are cute at pet shop, but what is the one that's going to suit your lifestyle, your space, like mixing metaphors here, but you got to take it home and see what space it's going to be existing in, right? Quick, super like tiny little follow-up on that. Are there microphones that lend themselves to different genres better? Yes or no? Like that you'd have running shoes and you'd have other shoes, or is that just silly talk?
I think that's it's one of those things that really has nothing to do with anything. I mean, there are a lot of people are using 416s. People who do a lot of promo work use U87s, but that's what they do, and that's why they have those, not because they have those and that's how they got into doing it. So it's not it's a cart before the horse sort of thing. Use what you got, perfect your technique and your acting ability and all those things, especially with audiobooks. And don't worry about that stuff. Let the experts listen to your audio, and if it's up to snuff, that's all that matters. If you need corrections, we can make acoustical corrections or technique corrections. It's not going to be the microphone unless you buy one off of Facebook.
Yeah. You can do very well at a reasonable, as Dan said, 150, 200. And I think what we are looking at is getting in the door. Once you're in the door and you're earning money, you can have as much gas as you like. You can buy 5 Neumann U87s anymore. But getting in the door is the thing, and I don't for a second think the fact that I've got that means I'm makes me successful. I could probably be just as successful with the TLM 103 that I had in the first place, but my pride just, I don't know, my ego says I can do this.
Yeah, you deserve nice things. It's good. We all deserve.
I do. Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so why don't we wrap up? Dan, how do people keep in touch with you, and how else can we get all your good Dan-ness?
You can contact me at voiceoverstudio.com. Easy to remember, hopefully. And I can, I've got services to help you with your audio. If you've got audio, you can go to my specimen collection cup at the bottom of my homepage. And for $25, I will give your studio a good analysis of what's going on. And make sure you watch Voiceover Body Shop.
Yeah.
Because we've always had great people like Simon Vance on, and him and I talk tech, and we love doing that. And we've been doing it for 10 years, and we wish more people would watch, but there's plenty watching already. So if you don't want to.
Yeah, but it's a great way if tech is not your thing, like just hanging out with people talking about, it's like car talk for sound, right? Hence the Body Shop.
Like this.
Yeah, awesome. And Simon, I know you said you don't coach per se, but you do other things. Like you have some.
I've got a website that I just revamped, and it's not particularly filled out yet, but it does have a contact page on it, and you can get in touch with me through that. That's rather best. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, but that's sort of standard stuff.
So do you want to put those handles in the chat and people can grab those?
Yes, well, the website is to simonvance.com.
I got you, Simon.
Okay, you're also okay. Jeffrey will do that for you.
The other one is the the Twitter handle is @simvan, SIMVAN, and I'm not sure Facebook. I have to. I don't much like Facebook. I'm there. It's I think you search for Simon Vance, and I have two. I have the one they used to call the fan one, and the one they call the personal. I kind of mix them up. So if you search for Simon Vance, the main one I think is I honestly don't know. Simon. I think Simon.Vance.
Yes. Awesome. And let's see if the dojo has something going on for everyone. We meet you where you are and help you get to where you want to be. So if you're interested in finding out more about what's going on at the dojo, www.thevodojo.com. We have you should do voiceover classes, which is our initial offering, our introductory foundational. I'll say foundational because wherever you are, we start there. But so that's coming up in September. And if you want to talk more about anything going on at the dojo, you can sign up for a voiceover once-over call, and we'll be happy to really talk, really talk with you and get a sense of where you're at. And Jeffrey, can you put those links in? There we go. Already there. Done and done. And we have a little treat for you after this. Simon was kind enough to do an inaugural version of a new thing we're going to be doing with all of our Ask the Sensei guests, which we're calling the VO Dojo 21 Questions. So it's kind of like, think the last questions at the end of Actors Studio meets Vanity Fair 73 questions. So we do have that recorded, and we'll be sharing that with the replay. So a little bit more in depth about some more questions, some more top questions that Simon was kind enough to share with us. So excellent. Well, I hope this has been inspiring. We're going to sign off here, but Joshua, can you tell people what's going on? Because it's kind of like the after party.
Exactly.
We will go into breakout rooms, but Joshua will tell you how and what to do.
Sure, folks. We are all about the community here at the VO Dojo. And so if you want to stay on and continue to connect with other folks who are in this field, and you can talk about what stood out for you, or your Dojo O, as we call them, right? The thing that was like a light bulb moment for you that made you go, oh. Right?
Yeah.
So you can type those into the chat as well, because we'd love to learn from you before we go into breakout rooms. And then when the time is right, we'll just I'll arrange it and click the join button, and you can stay on for as long as you'd like.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. So yeah. If you want to type in your Dojo O's, oh my gosh, there's so many awesome people on this call. It's great. Yeah. I think my Dojo O was power over your process. That really struck me, that little distilled gem. I think we need to do that as humans, as voiceover artists in general, but I think in particular, as audiobook narrators. Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Any other? Are we waiting for Dojo O's, or are we going to separate into rooms, Joshua?
I was hoping that we'd see 2 or 3 people type in their Dojo O in the chat so we could all learn from each other. But Simon, I know you've got to go soon.
Well, I'm just going to, I'll come back. I need to run for personal reasons.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes. I got to run up to the house.
Okay,
and,
awesome.
I'll stop my video, but my name will be there, and I will be back in,
Okay.
and wherever I appear when I come back will be where I appear.
Yeah, excellent, great. And guys, we are complete here. So if you need to roll, the experience is complete, and we'll see you next month. Our Ask the Sensei guest is Caitlin Robrock, who is the voice of Minnie Mouse, and she actually met the casting director at a fight club. She didn't get it because she didn't get it at a fight club, but she had a relationship with Renee Johnson. So that's a story for next month as we start our fall session. So yeah. All right. Well, I'll see some of you in a breakout room for a few minutes. Stay for as long as you want or as short as you want. And then are you able to play for a little bit?
Yeah, I can stay for a little bit. Got a couple interesting
Awesome.
questions in there to still deal with.
It's all good gravy. Yay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Dojo team. Thanks, Dan. And so excited to have you all here. And we'll see you next month.